Welcome to MILF,
I'm Courtney,
and I'm Jennifer.
and we are two moms into literary freedom. Hey, Jennifer, are you excited for our first junior episode in a long, long time?
I know it's been a while since we covered a junior book.
Yeah, I'm going to have to try really hard to
Censor yourself.
my vocabulary because this is a junior episode. So to remind our listeners, this is safe for little ears because we're covering books for little people, mainly picture books. Sometimes we do, older books. I think next week we'll do one called Ban This Book, which we consider a junior book.
Yeah.
But this one is called Sam is My Sister. It is written by Ashley Rhodes-Courter and illustrated by Mackenzie Halley. I've read it probably 20 times to my 7-year-old. She loves it. And after the book, we're going to have a discussion on Senate Bill 254 here in Florida, right?
Yes.
And we're going to talk about how Florida has stooped to a new low I didn't even think that we could stoop to. And that is with regards to the abduction portion of that bill that allows parents to essentially abduct their children from other states. But we'll, get into more details on that after we read the book.
Okay.
So have you read this book yet, Jennifer?
You know what? I think it looks familiar. I think I read it with my daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'm pretty sure we have.
It's heavily banned, I think. I mean, let's just get into it. And for those of you listening to this episode, we are releasing a video of this episode so you can see the pictures as well. All right, so Evan, Sam, and Finn did everything together. All summer they played with trains, climbed trees, and fished in the river behind Grandpa's house. They even went to outer space. Evan thought Sam and Finn were the perfect co-pilots. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off. Zoom, zoom, brothers to the moon, Evan cheered. At the library, they lugged books about space to the checkout desk. Wait, Sam shouted before running back to the shelves. Sam returned with a glittery book that had a long-haired princess on the cover. Why do you want a girl book instead of a space book? Evan asked. Books are for everyone to enjoy, Mom said. And girls can go to space too, Sam chimed in. Did you know donuts float in space? Finn asked. They all laughed, but Evan still wondered why Sam wanted that book. It was time to get haircuts for school. Evan and Finn got theirs cut shorter like Dad's. Then it was Sam's turn. You're going to look so handsome, Dad said. I don't want to look handsome, Sam cried. I want to be beautiful with long hair down to my toes. Mom and Dad just looked at each other, and Mom shrugged. Just a trim for Sam, Dad told the barber. What supportive parents. I get the goosebumps every time I read this one. Why doesn't Sam want to look like us anymore? Evan whispered to Dad. Well, buddy, it's Sam's hair, Dad said. A new hairstyle isn't hurting anybody. That's right.
Imagine that.
Evan didn't understand, but he saw the huge smile on Sam's face. On the first day of school, Evan put on his new clothes and showed Mom. But Sam wasn't ready. I don't like shorts. I want to wear a dress. Dresses are for girls, Evan said. Why do you want to dress all wrong? I want to wear what I like, Sam said. Mom seemed to be thinking. She left the room a moment and came back with a white hair bow. How about this for now? Mom clipped the bow in Sam's hair. Sam beamed. It's perfect. At school, some other kids pointed and laughed at Sam. One tried to grab Sam's bow. Why are you wearing that? He asked. Because I like it, Sam said. Boys don't put stuff in their hair, another boy added. Well, I do, Sam shouted and marched off. Evan glared at the boys before running after Sam. Do you want to play spaceship? Evan asked. Paging Commander Sam, but Sam stayed quiet. Evan tried again. Zoom, zoom, brothers too. I don't feel like playing, Sam said softly.
Poor Sam.
Every time I read this, I cry. I'm not making any promises, but I'm going to try really hard not to cry at the end.
Okay.
The morning bell rang. Line up, a teacher called. Girls in one line, boys in another. Mrs. Carson, where do I go? Sam asked. Evan wondered why Sam didn't get in line next to him and the other boys. Mrs. Carson looked over at Sam. How about you just walk next to me, she said. Mom and Dad started letting Sam wear dresses after school and on the weekends. Sam couldn't wait to change into skirts with bright tights and put on pretty shoes. Evan had never seen Sam so happy. Why do you want to look like a girl? Evan asked one day. Because I am a girl, Sam said. On the inside, Sam drew a heart with a sparkly crayon. I don't get it, Evan replied. He picked up a crayon and drew a moon next to Sam's heart. So how do you know which hand to use when you color? Sam asked. Evan stopped drawing for a moment. I don't know. Drawing with my other hand just doesn't feel right. Well, being a boy doesn't feel right to me, Sam explained. It's just who I am. Evan tried to draw a star with his other hand and got frustrated. This is weird. I'm glad no one makes me do this all the time, Evan said. Sam has been talking to us about something important, Mom said that night. And Dad and I have met with some doctors and experts. We learned that for some people, the way they think and feel inside doesn't match what they look like on the outside. Even though Sam was called a boy at birth, Sam identifies as a girl. The word for that is transgender. Yes, that's me, said Sam. I want to be myself all the time. Dad smiled at Sam. You are in charge of who you are and how you feel. And we are in charge of making sure you kids are happy and healthy, Mom added. Well, I want to be in charge of dessert tonight, Finn said. If you're a girl, can we still go fishing? Finn asked. Of course we can, Sam said. Girls like to fish too, you know, Evan told Finn. What about playing spaceships, planes, and trains? Finn wondered. Sam laughed. We can play anything and with any toys. We better tell Mom we're going to need a bigger toy box, Finn said. At school, things weren't as easy. Sam, you can't play with us because you're not a boy anymore, one boy said. No, that's just a boy in a dress, said a girl. Evan got angry. Hey, don't talk like that to my sister. He stood next to Sam until the mean kids walked away. You called me your sister, Sam said with a grin. Well, you are, Evan nodded. Evan knew that Sam was still the same Sam. That night at bedtime, Evan, Sam, and Finn watched as the moon rose and the stars sparkled through the clouds. What about going to the moon? Finn whispered. Will you still want to come with us? Evan asked. Princesses can go to the moon, Sam whispered. Yes, they can, Evan said. Zoom, zoom, family to the moon. The end. I did it. I didn't cry.
You did it.
There's a
It's
little
such a
bit at the end.
sweet, sweet way to just explain it to a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why. I mean, I know why, but I can't understand why people would have an issue with this book.
Yeah, it's just the sweetest. I think the reason that people have an issue with this is because you can't argue it. There's
Right.
like there's no arguing. It puts it in such a simple and understanding way that people, I mean, it's cognitive dissonance really, where like you know that something is right, but you were brought up for some reason, or you choose to just like hold on to this belief that it's like sinful or wrong or unnatural, even though this book and your experiences of like of hearing about it on the news and like knowing that it's not something that the woke left made up
Right.
to destroy purity or whatever. I
They'll
love the
still see
part.
it that way. Yeah. They'll never, it's too accepting. This book is too accepting. It
Mhm.
normalizes what they consider not normal.
Yeah.
And that just pushes against everything they stand for.
Hmm. Absolutely. It made me think of this National Geographic that I'll have to look. I feel like it's a really old issue, but it's not an old issue at all. But like I remember being a teenager and seeing it, and it was about a transgender girl, and the cover, had like her picture, and I remember being like, a teenager and being super interested and like, wow, that seems like um such a like out there concept, like it's not been normalized at all,
Right.
but when you read the article, it tells you like this has been happening in cultures since the beginning of time. Like this isn't a new thing. People have been born, feeling in a different gender than what their anatomy says for since the beginning of humans.
Right.
But of course, we want to ignore that.
Right. Right.
We want to say that that's not
Well,
true.
it's also the way you see people say the right will say,
Mhm.
oh, there weren't gays in my day. Now
Mhm.
everyone is gay. No,
Mhm.
everyone was gay then too. They just hid it.
You know what is a great example of that is right-handed versus left-handed, which they talk about in this book, which is how Sam explains it to her brother, which I think is super relevant and accurate because it used to be that if you were left-handed, you got in trouble at school.
Yes.
And they would like beat you until you learned how to write with your right hand. My dad is left-handed. He was born in 1950, and he tells me stories about how his teachers didn't really accept that he was left-handed, and it wasn't easy for him to continue to write with his left hand. Like it was sort of like he felt like he was doing something wrong by doing that.
Right.
And now maybe it skips a generation because now my daughter is left-handed, the one who loves this book, right? And I remember when I first found out, like my instinct was like, why don't you try it with your right hand?
Right.
I'm like, what the heck is wrong? Have I cursed yet on this episode? I don't think I have.
No, I think we're
Yeah,
good.
I almost just did. But I was like, what the heck is wrong with me? Why am I trying to make my kid be right-handed? Like She swears that it's easier, more comfortable for her to write with her left hand. So that's what she
Right.
do. And it's the same thing. It's controlled by a gene, right? And you can't help it. Ginger dysphoria, which I don't really like that name,
I know. I don't like that name either.
but I feel that's just the name that's the language we currently have. It'll
Right.
change, I'm sure, but that's also a genetic thing. And no kid chooses to be ostracized by their community by
Yeah.
saying that they're a different gender than what their anatomy says.
Right. That's also the same idea when people say, like, oh, parents are forcing their kids to be trans. Why, as a parent, would I want to make my life's child more difficult? Not because being trans is difficult, but because
Hmm.
society, it's going to be harder for that child because society hasn't caught up with,
Hmm.
the times.
Yeah. Not only do you not want to make your child's life more difficult, but from a selfish perspective, like you don't want to make your life more difficult. Like you don't want to pay for gender
Right.
therapy if you don't have to, right?
Yeah, because that's expensive. It's not cheap.
Yeah. And speaking of gender therapy, one of the things that really bugs me the most about this whole conversation is the extreme right making the false claim that minors are undergoing surgeries.
Yeah.
No doctor would suggest surgical reassign or surgical any kind of surgery on a
Right.
minor. What they do suggest are hormone therapies, right? That delay puberty. And as a result, get rid of or like remove suicidal thoughts and tendencies. And even in the extreme cases, like attempts, like kids have attempted suicide because how they feel inside does not match what they look like on the outside.
Yeah. I can imagine they're not happy with having to pretend to be something they're not.
Hmm. I wrote down a statistic. Let's see if I can find it. 54% of trans and non-binary youth in Florida seriously considered suicide in the past year. And that statistic came from the Trevor Project, which is a suicide prevention and crisis intervention organization for LGBTQ plus youth. So, I mean, and that's not the first that we've discussed this on the podcast, but the amount of depression and suicide in adolescence because of this is just, I mean, it's so obvious and it's so significant that, like, why wouldn't you help a child feel more like themselves?
And people really, like you were saying, do believe that it's all about, oh, they're mutilating children.
Yeah.
Because I've had conversations with people about that, and they're like, oh, this is happening, that's happening. I remember specifically this one lady that I always seem to go back and forth with on Facebook.
Hmm.
She shared something, and it had to do with like a mom making certain adjustments for her child who was a tomboy, right?
Hmm.
And she kind of like was saying like, oh, instead of doing all this sex change stuff, this was acceptable. And I pointed out, I'm like, you realize that's gender affirming care.
Yeah.
That's what these parents are doing.
Yeah.
There's no mutilation, there's none of
No.
that is happening.
Elon Musk engages in gender affirming care if we're talking about it. I
Yes.
mean, didn't he like get his jaw chiseled, which is like a very it's like a obviously a very common feature that like manly men
Right.
want to see is that like jawline, that chiseled jawline. Well, let me tell you, Elon Musk did not have a jawline a few years ago, and now he does.
He
And
also didn't have hair before.
yeah, and so those two things are things that he did to affirm his gender as a masculine man. It's the same
Right.
thing. Yeah. I mean, in this book, Sam didn't, and this book is, a great example of many transgender children in the country, right? And all
Right.
he did to make her feel more like herself was use her pronouns that make
Right.
her feel better, she and her, right? And also let her wear bows in her hair, let her keep her hair long, wear pink shirts and dresses at home. And that's not, like you said, undergoing a sex change. That's gender affirming care. That who knows, what decisions she'll make when she becomes, an adult, an 18-year-old
Right.
adult. Maybe she'll move to a different state where she can get those surgical procedures done. And if she wants to do that, then that's her choice. That's her body. We live in a supposed free country where you can do whatever you want.
Right.
You should be able to.
And they
Um,
love to also bring up like there are people who do change their mind, right? That does happen. But the percentage is very small of people who have had surgical interventions
yeah,
who later on change their mind.
that's right.
It's a very small percentage.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure what the exact, but I think it was like 3%, maybe.
Hmm. Hmm. And it makes you wonder, like in those 3% changes where they like went back on it, like who got to them, who, told them that they were going to hell if they didn't, go back to, the body that God gave them or whatever, like who gaslit them into not being who they wanted to be.
Oh, it's between 1% and 2%.
Oh, yeah, that's even
Like,
lower.
so to say, oh, look, 1% of people changed their mind, so we have to outlaw it for everyone. What
Hmm.
about the 99%,
Hmm.
98% that still are happy with their decisions?
Yeah, critics love to use that 1 to 2% as
Yeah.
example of how it's bad or whatever. But yeah, we're gonna get into our discussions about Senate Bill 254 in just a minute. And we're back. That was literally the fastest minute ever. We had to pause the recording so that my husband, the infamous Blake, you may know him from TikTok, um, had a meeting, so we had to let him do his thing since we don't
That was
make.
a quick meeting.
Yeah, it was.
I barely had a potty break.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's in short meetings throughout the day. But he's the only one that makes money. So unless this podcast can start making money, we got to just do what Blake says.
That's right. We work around his schedule.
But yeah, he's in some of our TikToks. So if you're interested in seeing what he looks like. Oh, that reminds me. Before we get into the second part of this episode, we would like to ask you to rate, review, and subscribe. Follow us on our socials
Yes.
and leave us a review because it really helps in terms of, the algorithm and all that stuff that I don't
Yes,
understand.
please.
So
We're
yeah,
easy to find. Mom's into Literary Freedom or MILF for books.
the number 4.
The number 4. Yeah.
So please do us a solid and like us, follow us, rate us. And also, if you're interested in seeing this video or the video recording of this episode, like we mentioned earlier, you can become an ally for just $1 a month. And that link is in our show notes. But I think it's pretty easy to remember. It's just something about Supercast. Oh, yeah, MILF, the number 4, books.supercast.com. So that's MILF, the number 4, books.supercast.com. For $1 a month, you can see these videos and more. Back
We would
to,
appreciate it. Yes.
yes, back to the book and the bill. It's Senate Bill 254. And essentially, it was passed into law last year, right?
Yes. And then it's gone through the court system because it was challenged.
Mm-hmm. By a
Um,
lot of different civil organizations,
yes.
the ACLU, I'm sure, the Trevor Project and
Well, I'll let you explain what the law is first, and then we can go into how it's been challenged.
yeah, so essentially it's just what we discussed at the beginning of the episode, which is banning any sort of gender affirming care. And, that's as simple as taking a hormone blocker, hormone therapy that delays puberty. But like we said, the other side, the extreme side of things, they want you to believe that it's like that DeSantis is doing the Lord's work by protecting children's surgeries are only happening if the child is born with like severe complications. It's not as simple as like I was born a different gender from what my anatomy says. In those cases, the professionals ranging from the pediatrician or the doctor to the mental health professionals are having these important conversations with the parents and the children about what would make that child feel happier, because at the end of the
Right.
day we just want the children to be happy, and that's our job
Right.
as parents and adults, is to make sure the children are happy.
And
Because
it's also not like you could just walk up and be like, oh, I want to have this change done. And they're
yeah,
like, yeah, come on in. We're going to do it right now.
yeah,
There's a lengthy procedure.
yeah. And when you say change, you mean taking a pill to prevent facial hair from growing, right?
Well, I mean, they seem to think like you can just walk into a doctor and have surgery done that,
Yeah,
like same day. And
Yeah,
that's
you
not how
can't.
it
Well,
works.
yeah, and even if, yeah, it's not how it works. And even if it were, doctors are going to say no to
Right.
surgical procedures if you're under 18. Like,
Right. Even as an adult, it's not that easy to do.
yes,
You
it's so
have to
hard.
see a psychiatrist or a mental health expert. You have to be on medication for a long time. It's not just an
Mhm.
overnight change.
You
It's
need like permission from these mental health experts. And who knows if you're even going to get a good one, right? Because you could
right.
have some biased mental health experts who has all the credentials that they need, but they're like, you know what? I think this is wrong, and I'm not going to give you the signature that you need to be the person that you feel on the inside. But again,
Right.
that extreme case, or that case there, is only applied to adults over the age of 18.
Right.
This book is clearly about a child, and there are so many cases of children who need this gender affirming care that Senate Bill 254 made illegal last year. It's really just, hormone therapy is what the proper name is. But yeah, so that's basically what the bill did last year. And then, like Jennifer said, it was challenged by lots of different organizations. And then just recently, last week, an appeals court said, hey, this law is the law, and you have to Florida is going to follow this law while the lawsuit is happening.
Right. Yeah.
So there's still a lawsuit, which is good. However, what it's bad that if you're a child in Florida going through this, you don't get any sort of gender affirming care.
Yeah. It has to work its way through the court system.
Mhm.
So, they've appealed it. Now the other side will appeal that decision, and it'll
But
keep
at
going
what
till it gets
cost?
up to, I guess, the Supreme Court,
It,
which I think the US Supreme Court is already hearing a similar case from Tennessee, I think.
oh, okay.
So
Yeah, I
I'm
understand like
sure they'll make a ruling soon too.
the legality of it is very complicated, and I barely understand it. I mean, I understand like the basics of it, but like at what cost? Like this shouldn't even be happening in the first place, because there are children out there that are dealing with severe depression and suicidal thoughts and even suicidal attempts because, you know, a man they don't even know is saying that their parents don't know what's best for them. And we're
Right.
supposed to be like the parental rights state. And I mean, thank goodness I don't have to deal with this, myself, because I wouldn't wish, like we said earlier in the episode, I wouldn't wish any child to have to go through, being ostracized by their community.
Right.
But, as a parent, I would do whatever I could to make sure my child was happy and healthy. And I can't, if I had children that were anywhere near the LGBTQ spectrum, I would leave the state.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot of parents doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing, if you were dealing with that, at least we know that between you and Blake, that child would have the care it needs. It wouldn't be an issue. But this law, where let's say, for an example, Blake was like, no, I'm against this,
Oh, yeah.
they would side with Blake automatically.
Yeah,
And
that's why
that's
it's
where
called the
this law is
abduction
messed
law.
up. And
Okay,
I think
so
that's really messed up because it says here that, the bill is a measure with that's intended to protect children. Although mainstream medical associations, including the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization, all support gender affirming care for minors as a treatment for gender dysphoria.
in gender affirming
Oh,
care, in that case, can be as simple as hormone therapy. It's not
right.
surgery.
It's discounting, medical associations
The World Health Organization.
just to side with people who don't, who just think it's wrong. They don't
Right.
have any medical basis, any scientific basis for it. It's just their Bible said it was wrong, or
Yeah. Even though the
you
Bible
know,
doesn't say it's wrong, but their
right.
interpretation of the Bible, which they don't even read, says that it's wrong. Their pastor says that
I
it's
have
wrong.
a joke for this, but it's not the episode for it, so I'll save it for
Well,
another one.
if you guys want to hear Jennifer's off-color adult joke, make sure you listen to the next episode. What was I gonna say though? Shoot.
Sorry.
No, so you were explaining why this critics call SB 254 the abduction law.
Yes.
So I had ChatGPT help me understand this bill because it's complicated. And when you just read it, you're like, wait, what is it saying? Like the language is so vague, purposefully vague that you
Right.
don't understand, right? And so after analyzing like 4 different articles, and then running them through ChatGPT, this is what I came up with to explain it. So here's a scenario for the listeners out there to explain just how crazy this law really is. So let's just say that there are 2 parents, Sarah and Alex, and they have a 14-year-old child named Jamie, and they live in the state of Georgia. Jamie has been receiving gender affirming therapy as a part of their transition, and both Sarah and Alex initially agree on Jamie's care, which is legally permitted in Georgia. I don't know if it is, but for the case of this scenario, let's just say that it is. But all of a sudden, Alex goes to a Baptist church, and his pastor, this is me, not ChatGPT, I'm making this part up. But let's just say Alex's pastor is like, gender affirming care is sinful and unnatural, and you're a bad parent if you let your child, do that. So Alex moves to Florida, and Sarah and Jamie remain in Georgia, where Jamie continues their treatment. But after moving to Florida, Alex now is able to file a petition in a Florida court invoking Senate Bill 254 and claims that Jamie's gender affirming care is a threat to Jamie's well being and requests that Florida assume emergency jurisdiction over Jamie. So, under the bill's provisions, the Florida court could agree to take temporary custody of Jamie. This means that the Florida court could potentially override the custody agreement established in Georgia and mandate a halt to Jamie's gender affirming treatments, making decisions based on Florida's regulations. So it basically, this illustrates how a state could intervene in custody and healthcare decisions, even if those decisions were legally and consensually made in another state, by allowing a parent to petition for jurisdiction and influence care decisions. So,
I wonder because I think for that to happen, what's dad's name in this scenario?
Alex.
Alex would have to have custody of the child in that moment. So, like, let's say summer visitation comes,
Mm-hmm.
Jamie flies out to Florida, and while
Mm-hmm.
Jamie's here, Alex runs out and gets that done.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm wondering if that might backfire because if I'm Jamie's mom, I'm going to petition the Georgia court to modify the parental agreement where I don't have to send Jamie over
Yeah.
because,
But maybe Jamie's mom didn't anticipate that she would even need to do
yeah,
that. And so then she finds herself in this situation because Florida is just not a free state, apparently.
no.
And so what ends up happening is you have this like unexpected legal battle between not only Jamie and Alex, or sorry, Sarah and Alex, the mom and the dad, but also between Florida and Georgia.
And I'm sorry, what I meant was not Jamie's mom, but like let's say another family, right?
Oh,
Who's
okay.
aware of this.
Oh
And
yeah.
maybe in this scenario, there's Barbie and Tim. Tim is not a bad dad who's going to do
Mhm.
that, but
Mhm.
Barbie doesn't want to send her child, so she uses this law as a reason not to send her child over to Tim.
Yeah, it
I
doesn't.
feel like there could be a lot of different ways that this will backfire.
And I wonder what, yeah, I wonder what a court will ultimately rule because it's nuts. Like there's the freedom is just completely taken away.
And
Uh
why does Florida have more say over Georgia?
I don't, yeah.
You know,
So
like how can they intervene?
it's
But
definitely a lawsuit worth following for sure.
yeah. But meanwhile, while they argue back and forth, they're going to go bankrupt in court fees and
Yeah.
paying lawyers. And a lot of times that's what happens. One of the parents ends up giving up because they can't afford it.
Yeah. That's awful. Yeah, I think that's kind of like the point Florida is trying to do is like, hey, we're going to make it so hard that you're not even going to consider fighting.
Right.
And then Florida, and the idea is that Florida is just going to be this like quote free state when in reality it's the complete opposite, and it's just going to be filled with people who can't afford to leave or with people who align with their you know insane fascist views.
And I think people are starting to wake up to this
Mm-hmm.
and realize that this is not the way to go. Because even in the elections that just happened here in Florida,
Oh yeah.
a lot of the picks that DeSantis
Fantasy.
backed,
Yeah.
they lost
Yep.
big.
Yep.
So Even among Republicans, I think they're starting to realize it's a little too extreme for them.
Yeah, just look at the state park situation.
Oh
Him
my
wanting to
God.
put golf courses and lodges on state parks and then calling it improvements. Like
Right.
he literally defended himself by saying that he was improving the state parks by putting pickleball courts on them. And it's like, oh, you don't want them to be improved? Like, no, you don't improve the
No.
state park by putting a pickleball court on it. Like, you can fix a boardwalk, but you don't put a pickleball court on it. But the whole state came together on that.
Yeah.
It was a bipartisan effort of like, no, you're not going to do that to Florida, because that is one thing Floridians can agree on is their nature.
Right. We don't want overdevelopment.
Yeah. And that's one thing where it really does illustrate the power of the people is if we all come together and say, we are against X, and then, X doesn't happen, right? Just imagine how much better the state would be if everyone was on the same page in terms of like female reproductive freedom.
Right.
Like that's one thing that Floridians can't all agree on is like who can make decisions about a woman's uterus, but they can all agree that they don't want pickleball courts in their state park.
But it's also baffling. Like, Republicans are all about their freedoms, right? Freedom,
Mhm.
freedom, freedom. They love to yell about freedom. But it's like almost like that disconnect there where they don't realize that them getting involved in what a woman does with her own body is
Mhm.
restricting her freedom.
Yeah.
Like, you
No,
guys
they realize it. They just
don't
they
care.
want freedom for themselves, but not for their women.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So I'm really hoping that we see, because this whole park situation really did make me think like, because there was an interview or an article about how like someone asked DeSantis, like, are you losing, do you think you're losing your grip on Florida? And of course he said he didn't think he was, but like, I think he might be losing his grip.
Oh,
Like you just
he
said,
definitely is.
even Republicans are like, because I've said this so many times, I'm not anti-Republican. I'm anti-DeSantis Republican or Trump Republican.
Right.
Like the extreme Republicans who want to go back to like 1930.
Right.
But I think that there's going to be a shift in Florida when he finally leaves the office. So
I think so too. I think people are realizing what what they keep asking for, what they thought they wanted is not
mm-mm.
what they want.
Yeah, no, he's just going to keep pushing the envelope too.
Yep.
I mean, pickleball courts, come on.
And
What?
hotels.
Yeah, a hotel in the middle of a park? That's an oxymoron. I don't get
So
it.
dumb.
Yeah.
And like the whole point of these parks is they're not actual parks. They're,
You
parks
visit
that
for
have
the
been like,
day.
with slides and stuff where you go
Yeah.
and have like a day. No, it's like where you go hiking,
Yeah.
go be immersed in nature.
Yeah. That would be like if you tried to put a hotel in the middle of Central Park or something.
Right.
Like that's so stupid. Oh,
Yeah.
can you see my dog? Do you see her new beanbag?
Oh, I saw that. Did you make it?
No, I bought that beanbag. I did make
Oh,
some
okay.
I made some miniature little poofs. They don't look that good, but they work.
It looked good to me.
Well, it's because I put it on Instagram and I didn't show you the bad part and I put a filter on it because that's what Instagram is for. All
I
right.
was impressed.
Well, thank you. But yeah, I don't know. I think that can be it for today, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think we covered everything we needed to.
Okay. But yeah, thanks for listening and don't ban books.
Ban bigots. This episode has been engineered and mixed by your hosts, Jennifer Mendoza and Courtney Green.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow us at MILF for Books. That's MILF, the number 4, books on TikTok, Instagram, Threads, and X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it.
And don't forget to help the show by rating us wherever you get your podcasts.